Hello and welcome back to Automotive Tales. On today's episode we are back on the 944. So in this episode we are going to focus on the final brake line for the back. So you can see we have a length cut. We've already got one of the ends flared. Got the two ferrules on, which is very important. So we just need to flare the other end, making sure these ferrules stay on, otherwise that's a disaster. And then start to manipulate it into shape for the rear of the car. We're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about galling. So I mentioned in the previous episode that if you use stainless lines and stainless ferrules like I'm doing, then you do stand at risk of galling the threads. So I'm going to do a little bit of an example and hopefully demonstrate that for you in this episode. So back to the bench. So here you can see one of the stainless ferrules, and you can also see one of the old brass, I think they are, ferrules that came off. While the thread is pretty worn, you can see it's nice clean thread, at least as it is on the new item. Now if I show you one of the stainless ones that I've threaded into another piece of stainless as an example, and this has only been threaded in once, you can see the pickup in the thread there already. Compared to the unused stainless item, you can see all the bits of pickup on the thread there. Now that is galling. It's absolutely classic galling. So that is the reason why we use a lubricant of some sort. In this case, we're using a Molykote on the threads, because we're going from a stainless ferrule into a stainless fitting on the braided lines. So from just one fitting, while you should only be putting it in and out once or twice, you can straight away see that that has compromised the thread. So a very important little thing to note when you're working with stainless. Stainless is quite a soft material compared to steel. And when you put stainless and stainless together, because they're so closely matched, they just chew themselves up like this. And that's the same with flat surfaces as it is with threads. Obviously, it's more notable with threads because there's a lot more surface area engagement. So something to be careful of. So second time lucky. That is the second flare done. So as you can see, it's kind of a slightly donutty shape. It's not perfect, but it should be near enough, such that when we clamp that down, it's going to squash that nicely between the female and the male parts of the fitting, and get a nice seal as it squishes that conifer down. So that should be good enough to start getting it on the car and forming it. So as you remember from the previous episode, we don't have a duplicate of this pipe to form it from, hence why it's one nice long straight piece for now. So we took it off the reel, straightened it out, ready to form it into what that was. And again, we're probably going to use a little bit of brute force and a couple of different bits of pipe just to help get a nice gentle curve on the pipe and try and avoid kinking it. But that's all going to have to be done underneath the car. So you may have noticed in the time lapse that I'm wearing a scarf. That's because it's freezing at the moment. So I need to go and find a heater before I go sit under the car. While we're working indoors, it's effectively outdoors with a door in front of it. It's cold. So it's about, I think it's about 1 or 2 degrees outside at the moment, or it was when I came inside. So maybe some gloves for this as well. Because if you're working on your car, always make sure your hands, your feet and your head are warm. Everything else should be fine. Right, here goes. So this is where we are starting. You can see the outlet there, or the inlet, I guess, to the brake caliper. So we're going to start by running the line from there, probably around about 90 degrees, and then heading off down this way. It's going to tuck up underneath the arm here, and then it's going to slowly head up all the way up here to try and find you can just see the shiny flexi line there on the bracket, just the other side of the arm. It's a slightly convoluted route. We're going to try and reference the other side as we go, but that's what we've got to try and achieve. That is going to be no mean feat, that's for sure. Okay, so you'll note I canned the time lapse because there is very little space under here and I kept knocking the camera, it was right in the way. But we've managed to get the line in, so as you can see, it's into the fitting up here. And that then runs down all the way under here and round the back into the caliper over here. It's not the neatest. I'm a bit nervous about pushing the line too hard. We might have to tuck it back in and add a few more bends in to get it out of the way at some point, but for now it's there and we can start to fill the system with brake fluid so I can put it back on its wheels. So that's one job down for today. I think it's time to go put some brake fluid in. So with great enthusiasm, I thought I was going to be on to filling up the brake fluid. However, I forgot we need to crack open the bleed nipples and see if they're actually okay. Now, on closer inspection, the actual top of the bleed nipple here looks okay, but the hex, which is a 7mm on the bottom of here, looks pretty ropey. So given it's quite late and it's quite cold, I am probably going to pull this one and the other one out, certainly get them loose, and then I'm going to go hunt for some new ones for next time, put some nice fresh ones back in, and then put some fluid in and bleed the system. It's going to make life easier down the line because I need to do the front brakes, which means I'll bleed these once, but I'm going to have to bleed the system again once I've done the front brakes, and I can't do the whole lot in one go because I've got to put the car back on the ground to turn it around so I can do the fronts and the engine mounts all in one go. So that's kind of changed the order of things. So it looks like we're going to try and get these out. So I've given them a blast with our Bulldog BDX, which is a lot better than WD-40. It's good at getting into the threads in here and hopefully loosening it all up. So let's see if it's going to come away. Well, this doesn't feel promising, to be honest. No, that's rounded almost straight away. Great. Can't even get a socket over it because even with a deep socket, the little end on here stops the socket from going all the way on. So this is going to be fun. So predictably, this is useless. Even the open end didn't work. So we went on to mole grips, or vice grips, if you're from the US. And even vice grips haven't shifted it. So, heat. That's my next tool. With the obvious inevitability, as you can see, it's still there. The bleed nipple has beaten me and the butane torch, and it's even beaten my vice grips. Son of a... So, a slightly extreme response, but I cannot get that bleed nipple out, not with heat, not with mole grips. So, the solution has been to take the nice brake line back out and to undo the caliper, and it's going to have to go on the bench. I have a suspicion the next episode is going to be John rebuilds brake calipers for a Porsche 944. So, this is the extreme measures we have to go to. However, ta-da! That is the thread broken loose. So now I can put it on the bench. I need to find something that isn't a broken vice grip to then get it the last bit of the thread out. Ugh. This was a great idea of mine. There's a very disapproving look off camera this way of somebody whose idea it was to just take the damn caliper off the car and put it in the vise. So hopefully this has avoided John rebuilds rear brakes, because actually these calipers don't look too bad. There's a bit of surface rust on them, but they all look okay. All the wiring is intact and everything else. The spring clips look good. So I really didn't want to have to rebuild these for now. So hopefully get this out, measure up the threads, get some new bleed nipples in there, and we're away. Right, well, we've finally got the bleed nipple out. Look at the state of that. It's no wonder it didn't want to come out. So I did start measuring it up to see what I need to replace it with. It's an M7 by 1.0, I believe, having used the little thread gauge. However, I bought new bleed nipples for the front of the car, and actually they are exactly the same for the front and the rear, it would appear. So I've checked all the measurements, I've tried fitting it in the caliper over here, and it fits just fine. So I'm going to use the ones I had for the front, which means I'm not delayed hugely. And then I can work on the front brake lines while a new set of these arrives. It's not so cheap buying these from the dealer, but at least you know you're getting exactly the right one. You'll recall back in some of the Volvo videos, we had all sorts of fun and games trying to get the right thread and the right length and everything for the front calipers, because there's 3 or 4 different types listed. So it's just my way of guaranteeing no faff. But now I know what they are, I could well use the mighty Car Builders Solution magazine thing to get some. But as I've started with Porsche parts, I will probably just end up buying the same again because I'm an idiot. So I'm going to put this new bleed nipple in, and then I'm going to make a cup of tea and slowly weep over my broken vice grips. Happy days. Cool, so caliper is ready to go back on. You'll notice I've just put one of the old brake line fittings, the ferrules, into here just to keep rubbish out of here while it's on the bench and while I've been cleaning it up. But yeah, it's probably going to sit here for a little while now because it is cold and late. So I'm going to pick this up on another day and put it all back together. So this will keep the dust out until then. But for you, let's go and put that back on the car. And voila! Caliper is back on. We have the brake lines refitted. We have the brake wear sensor refitted down at the bottom where it goes into, I don't know if you can see it on camera, this little thing here, which also has the ABS sensor going in, which is this wire coming from the top. And we have our new bleed nipple. So I suspect we're going to have exactly the same problem over here. So I'm just going to bite the bullet, take the caliper off, take the brake line out, etc., and get that one on the bench and save all the effort. So we finally have the passenger caliper out, and I'm kind of glad I took this out. I'm slightly concerned by the angle of this bleed nipple. This looks like it's been hit by something or it's cross-threaded. So I'm not holding out a great deal of hope for this, but get it in the vise, see if we can get that unthreaded now we've cleaned it up a little bit. So you can see we've just been around the surfaces, around where the brake line goes in and around where the bleed nipple goes in, just to clean it up a little bit so we try not to get any debris in there when we take the old one out and fit the new one in. Right, let's have a go. Phew, we've got him out. You can see what I'm talking about here. So you can see the thread at the bottom here, but the actual bit with the hex on and the bleed nipple bit is definitely on an angle compared to the rest of the thread. Luckily it wasn't cross-threaded, so it came out in one, which was good, but there's no way that would have come out without the vise. So you can see against the set square here just quite how bent that is. Fun fact for you, see the arrow on the set square in the 1944? That was a war issue part in 1944. That's what the arrow means. Okay, well, with the bleed nipple removed, time to fit a nice, fancy, clean, new, proper Porsche one into the caliper, which generally looks quite clean. Yes, I know it looks dirty on camera, but I mean, it's actually in fairly good working order. At some point, I'm going to come in and change the discs and pads and all the fittings that go with it on the rear, but I want to get it all up and running first, see how it feels, and then maybe go for some slightly upgraded parts, see if we can improve the brake performance, improve the pedal feel a bit. But for now, we're just going to put it back together as it is, get this back on the car, get the brake lines back in, and then we can actually put some brake fluid in at long last. Well, this has been a hell of a job. Automotive Tales. Thank you for watching the channel. Do please like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.